One of the biggest issues that I have had with OpenClaw that has caused me to hesitate pushing other people to jump into OpenClaw, frankly, has just, I think, knock on wood, been solved by a GitHub repo called Paperclip. Let me set this up, folks. This is absolutely game changing. I don't want to overhype this, but I've been testing it out now for 3 days, and I have been blown away with the problems that I've had over here without Paperclip that have now been solved over here with Paperclip. What is Paperclip? Paperclip is the ability to set up your OpenClaw or really any other agentic AI under a structure. Think of it similarly to a business structure. Now, let me set this up as to why this is so important. I've talked to you on this project and others for multiple weeks now about the issues that I've had setting up OpenClaw. And as I've set up OpenClaw, on one hand, about 75% is mind blowing, amazing things that it can do. Like every day, I'm saying, holy crap. And my wife's in the other room saying, what, AI again? Yeah, babe, come check this out. I'm showing her all these wonderful things that it can do. And then there's the 25% that just drives me crazy. It's the things that break, the things that don't work as well as I want them to, the things that are supposed to do this and instead they do this. And then I go back to Telegram and I talk to Whopper, which is the name of my OpenClaw system. And I say, what happened? And it says, oh, well, this happened and I just fixed it and it won't happen again. And then I wake up the next morning and it happens again. And I'm like, wait a second, you said this would never happen again. And Whopper says, well, yeah, it didn't happen again. Something else happened and it broke again, but that was something different than yesterday. It just drives me absolutely crazy. And so I learned something about agentic AI recently that I think is groundbreaking. So let me explain what I learned first, and then I'll explain how Paperclip fixes the problem. This is what I learned. And it's so crazy to me because this is something that I have actually talked about multiple times on this channel. I've told all of you listening, those of you following this project, that you should always treat your agentic AI like an employee. Okay? If you think of it as a machine, it will act like a machine. If you think of it as a human, it will act like a human. So the analogy that I've given is over the years, 16 years coaching, I have hired over 100 virtual assistants, most of them in the Philippines, but really all over the world. Over 100 souls that I've had employed in my company over the last 16 years. Well, really the last 12 years that I've been employing them. And I've learned a lot over that time. And I've learned how to interact with individuals who are not sitting in my office, that are on the other side of the world. But they're human beings with human problems, and human resources apply. So when you get into agentic AI, the cool thing about agentic AI is it acts like a virtual assistant. But some of the mistakes that I've made and I've seen others make is that they treat it like an AI. They talk to it like a machine. If you can get in your head that the agentic AI is human-like, therefore talk to it like a human, you're going to have better success. That brings me to some of the problems that I've had. I set up OpenClaw as a single agent, Whopper. Whopper does everything. Anything I ask Whopper to do, it takes its resources and it does. Now, once in a while, it was smart enough, proactive enough to spawn up other agents. That's the term that they use, spawn. I think that's interesting, by the way, that word and the way that agentic AI is going. But nonetheless, the idea is that it will spawn up other AIs to do certain that will come back and report back to Whopper. Okay. What has happened is multiple times that has failed. And it makes sense when you step back and look at it from a human organization standpoint. What do I mean by that? If you treat your OpenClaw like an organization, you're not going to have one agent do everything. That would be silly. Can you imagine setting up a venture, setting up a corporation and saying, okay, I'm going to have one hire and that hire is going to do everything from make executive decisions to cleaning the bathroom floor? That doesn't make any sense at all, because if your resources are in cleaning the bathroom floor, you can't dedicate your resources to making executive decisions. It's one of the reasons I've taught the law of delegation as a coach for so many years. It's the old Jim Collins idea of getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats on the bus. Because if you have the right people in the right seats, those resources are being spent over there, which frees you up as the visionary to actually make a vision, to actually do the stuff that it takes to run the business. If you're busy cleaning the bathroom floor, you cannot free up your mind to do the things that are your highest and best use. It's no different with agentic AI. It's no different when you look at something like OpenClaw. Insert Paperclip. Paperclip is an open source program that you can get on GitHub for free. You can do whatever you want with it, but it basically is an organization for your OpenClaw or your agentic AI. It's not specific to OpenClaw. It can be used in any of these systems. I happen to be using OpenClaw. That's where I'm deploying it. Paperclip is the ability to be able to set up sub agents or an organizational chart, which will allow you to have specific roles for each of these agents. These agents have a role, they have a name if you want to name them. I did mine. I'll show you mine in just a second, but it allows you to be able to get all of these people, there we go, right? Humanoids, agents working together who report back to Whopper. Let me show you what mine looks like really quick. I'm going to just share my screen. Okay, what you're seeing is a graphic actually created by Gemini showing the structure. So what I did was I grabbed the structure from Paperclip and then I plugged it in to Gemini and said, I want you to show me in visual form my organization chart. So as you can see at the top, I'm the owner, right? I'm the visionary. I'm the CEO of the company, right? And this is all of my ventures put together. So Whopper is my executive COO. Okay. And then underneath Whopper, I've got Walter White, who is my CTO, Jordan Belforth, my CFO, Ron Swanson, which is my DevOps executive team member, and then Barney Fife, which basically takes care of making sure the security is tightened up. Underneath each of those executive teams, I've got each of my ventures, my peak value appraisals, the appraiser coach, Dustin Harris Coaching, Goats of Glacier, and Wolfsack Ventures, which is my STRs. Okay. Underneath that, I've got each of my COOs. Okay. So I've got George Bailey, who is the COO of Peak Value. I've got Yoda, which is the COO of the appraiser coach. Underneath Dustin Harris Coaching, I've got Tony Stark. I've got Old McDonald underneath the Goats of Glacier. And then I've got Alfred, who kind of takes care of the mansion, right? The investment properties that I've got. And underneath them, I've got other sub agents that do certain things. Then at the bottom, I've got my personal life as well. Okay. My personal assistant is named Honey after the first VA that I hired ever 12 years ago. Her name was Honey. I don't know if that was her real name, but that's what she went by. And then I've got my briefing agent, my health coach, and my financial advisor as well. The idea here, folks, is that Paperclip allows me to be able to set up a system that is like an organization. Okay. So if I'm doing something in marketing under Dustin Harris Coaching, right, that is delivered to the DHS marketing CMO, the chief marketing officer, underneath Tony Stark, which is the COO of Dustin Harris Coaching, which then reports back to Walter White, who is the CTO, making sure that everything is running properly. Jordan Belfort basically makes sure that I don't spend too much money, too many tokens running that specific thing. Ron Swanson basically makes sure that the ship is tight, right? That we don't have any leaky holes. And then Barney Fife makes sure there's no security issues, who all then report back to Whopper. By the way, I only speak to Whopper. On my Telegram, I'm only speaking to Whopper. Why? Because I don't want to go in and speak to the DHS marketing CMO and then bypass everything else. And then when I ask Whopper what's going on with this particular project, Whopper would say, what project? I don't know what you're talking about. And then I would have to say, well, go talk to the DHS marketing CMO and find out. Everything runs through the communication brain. In other words, if I talk to anybody inside, that would be a violation of the organization chart, which would circumvent certain systems that I've set up properly. Look at it this way, right? Line of communication always runs through the executive COO, who then does the delegation, right? I don't choose the DHS marketing CMO to do a certain thing, right? That's done through the proper channels through Paperclip. What does this do in general? What this does, folks, is this allows Whopper to be freed up for delegation, which means Whopper's job is to oversee the organization. It's not to go scrub the bathroom floors. That's somebody else's job. Anything that happens inside my organizations happens at the level that it needs to happen at, and then the reporting sequence up through the chain. Now, I'll be honest with you, it may be a little bit of overkill. The most important thing are the four executive team members at the top, the Walter White, the Jordan, Ron, and Barneys. Okay, because here's what's going on. Typically, what has happened in the past, at least my understanding, is that when I ask Whopper to go do something and it does it, there's no chief technology officer, Walter White, to check and make sure that Whopper did it correctly. So when things break, remember when I told you that things break and I ask Whopper and it goes and looks and it finds it and says, okay, I fixed it. It won't happen again. The problem is Whopper is trying to do too much. Whopper's trying to do everything. Again, think of it in any organization. You've got a huge organization with lots of things going on, lots of moving parts, and you hire one person to take care of everything and you expect that it's not going to fall apart? Folks, again, when you think of it like a computer, you think, well, it's a computer. It's like a calculator. 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's always going to equal 4. Yeah, but if you're asking the calculator to do 2 plus 2 equals 4 and trying to do calculus on the same calculator at the same time, it's going to mess up. It can't do two things at once. And agentic AI is no different. Yes, it can spawn up additional agents, but when you get an organization put together, it solves so many problems. I hesitated making this video until I had tested this out for at least 3 full days. I am now confident that this has made a huge difference. Has it solved all the problems? Probably not, right? Are there still issues that are coming up? A little bit, right? I think you're going to have that with any business, and especially when you're dealing with agentic AI that is learning and growing and developing. But as far as the 75%, holy crap, blow my mind, 25% drive me crazy, I think that's been reduced to about 90-10 at this point. Check it out, Paperclip. It is free to use. If you're using OpenClaw or any other system, by the way, how do you set this up? That's a good question. I didn't. Whopper did. I went into Telegram and I said, hey, I heard about this new thing called Paperclip. And it went to GitHub and it came back and I said, yeah, that's a pretty amazing thing. Looks like it could really help us. Okay, great. Actually, I didn't even ask it to set it up. It asked me, do you want me to set it up? I'm like, can you do that? Well, sure. Maybe 10 minutes later, it comes back and says, okay, it's all set up. How do you want to divide out the teams? And I said, okay, well, I want a CTO, I want a CFO, I want a DevOps, I want a QA. And it went through and set them up. And then I went through and had some fun naming to remember the names by. Folks, this is very easy to set up and it will change the way that OpenClaw works. Trust me on that.